My name is Megan, and I'm 35 years old. That unexpected call from my sister after a decade of silence changed everything. I never imagined I'd be standing in court, fighting to keep the child I've raised as my own. 10 years ago, Heather left her 6-month-old daughter with me and vanished without a trace. Now she wants Lily back. The moment I saw that court summons, my entire world shattered. Before I continue this heartbreaking story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to hear more stories about family, betrayal, and the true meaning of motherhood. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Portland, Maine, Heather and I shared a bedroom with floral wallpaper and bunk beds. Despite the 4-year age gap between us, we were inseparable during those early years. I was the cautious one, always planning and thinking ahead, while Heather lived for the moment, embracing spontaneity and adventure with open arms. I can still picture 7-year-old Heather with her wild auburn curls, convincing me to climb the tallest tree in our backyard. "Come on, Maggie," she'd say, using that nickname I pretended to hate but secretly loved. "You can see the whole world from up here." I'd follow her, despite my fear of heights, because that's what little sisters do. We'd sit on that branch for hours, making up stories about the clouds and planning our future lives. But as we grew older, those differences that once complemented each other began pulling us in opposite directions. By the time Heather reached high school, our paths had dramatically diverged. While I joined the debate team and volunteered at the local hospital, already set on becoming a nurse, Heather found her place among the rebels and risk-takers. Her transformation wasn't sudden, it started with small things. Missed curfews, falling grades, the smell of cigarettes on her clothes. Mom would find empty beer cans hidden in her backpack, and Dad would ground her, but she'd just climb out her window anyway. Their arguments shook the house, with Mom crying and Dad's voice booming through the walls as I hid in my room with headphones on, trying to focus on my biology homework. "You're throwing your life away," Dad would shout. "It's my life to throw," Heather would scream back. Mom took a gentler approach, which only seemed to push Heather further away. "She just needs understanding," Mom would insist after Dad and Heather's explosive fights. But the understanding never seemed to change anything. My senior year of high school was Heather's freshman year, and it felt like we were attending different planets, not just the same school. I'd see her between classes, hanging out with seniors who drove motorcycles and had tattoos. She'd give me a half-hearted wave before turning back to them, laughing too loudly at jokes I couldn't hear. When I left for nursing school at Boston University, I felt equal parts guilt and relief. Guilt for leaving Mom and Dad to deal with Heather alone, and relief for escaping the constant drama. I called home every Sunday night, listening to Mom's carefully edited updates that couldn't hide the worry in her voice. Heather managed to graduate high school, barely, and enrolled in community college, only to drop out after one semester. What followed was a blur of retail jobs, waitressing gigs, and bartending positions, none lasting more than a few months. Her relationships followed the same pattern, intense beginnings that burned out quickly, leaving her heartbroken and bitter each time. Then came the news that changed everything. I was just finishing my night shift at the hospital when Mom called, her voice shaking. "There's been an accident, Megan. The drunk driver who hit my parents' car killed them instantly." I was 26, Heather was 22. Standing together at the funeral, we held hands for the first time in years. But even in our shared grief, we couldn't bridge the gap that had grown between us. I channeled my pain into my work, taking extra shifts and eventually specializing in pediatric nursing. Heather did what she always did, she ran. She moved from apartment to apartment, job to job, relationship to relationship, calling me occasionally when she needed money or a place to crash for a few days. 3 years after our parents' death, Heather called me at 2 a.m., sobbing so hard I could barely understand her. "I'm pregnant," she finally managed to say. "Who's the father?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. "Does it matter? He's not in the picture." Despite my concerns, a part of me felt hopeful. Maybe this was what Heather needed, something bigger than herself to care about, a reason to finally grow up and take responsibility. When I expressed my excitement about becoming an aunt, Heather seemed surprised. "You're not going to lecture me about how irresponsible I am? Would it help if I did?" I asked. For the first time in years, we both laughed together, and for a moment, I caught a glimpse of the sister I used to know. I had no idea then how that pregnancy would change both our lives forever, or that I was about to become much more than just an aunt to her child. Heather's pregnancy was difficult from the start. Morning sickness plagued her well into the second trimester, and her blood pressure kept creeping up at each prenatal visit. I'd drive the 2 hours from Boston to Portland every other weekend, taking her to appointments and helping her prepare for the baby. "I don't know how to be someone's mother," she confessed one evening as we assembled a second-hand crib in her tiny studio apartment. "I can barely take care of myself." "You'll learn," I assured her, though my own doubts lingered unspoken between us. "And I'll help you." The nursery corner we created was a hodgepodge of donated items and thrift store finds: a pale yellow crib, a changing table with chipped paint, and a rocking chair that creaked with every movement. Heather seemed more interested in picking out tiny outfits than in reading the parenting books I brought her. When her water broke 3 weeks early, I was in the middle of a 12-hour shift. I still remember the panic in her voice when she called. "Maggie, it's happening." "I'm scared." I broke every speed limit driving to Portland, arriving just in time to hold her hand through the final hours of labor. Lily Grace came into the world at 3:17 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday. 6 pounds and 4 ounces of perfection, with a tuft of dark hair and eyes the same deep blue as our mother's. Watching Heather hold her daughter for the first time, I felt a surge of hope. For a moment, she looked at Lily with such wonder and love that I thought, maybe this is it, the turning point we've been waiting for. That hope began to fade in the weeks that followed. Heather called me crying almost every night, overwhelmed by the constant demands of a newborn. I started taking long weekends, using up my vacation days to help her adjust. What I found on those visits worried me more each time. Heather would hand Lily to me the moment I walked through the door, often looking like she hadn't slept or showered in days. The apartment would be a mess: unwashed bottles in the sink, dirty laundry piled on the floor, and the distinctive sweet smell of marijuana hanging in the air when she thought I wouldn't notice. "I think I have postpartum depression," she told me when Lily was 6 weeks old. "Everything feels heavy. Sometimes I look at her and feel nothing." "Isn't that terrible? What kind of mother feels nothing for her baby?" I encouraged her to talk to her doctor and even set up the appointment myself, but she canceled it at the last minute. Instead, she started asking me to take Lily for a night or two, just so I can catch up on sleep. Those nights stretched into weekends. My apartment in Boston gradually transformed: a portable crib in my bedroom, a changing station on my dresser, a cabinet full of formula and baby food. My colleagues at the pediatric ward started joking about my part-time baby. At 3 months, Lily rolled over for the first time on my living room floor. At 4 months, she laughed for the first time when I tickled her tummy during a bath. At 5 months, she started babbling BBBA while I fed her morning cereal. "You're so good with her," Heather said during one of her visits to pick Lily up. She seemed distracted, constantly checking her phone. "She lights up around you in a way she never does with me." "That's not true," I said, though we both knew it was. "She just needs consistency. Babies thrive on routine." "Yeah, well, routine was never my strong suit," Heather replied with a forced laugh. The pattern continued, with Heather's visits becoming shorter and the time between them growing longer. She'd drop Lily off with bags of diapers and formula, promising to be back in a day or two, only to call with excuses about why she needed to extend her absence. I started noticing other troubling signs. Sometimes Heather would arrive with a jittery energy, talking rapidly and making grand plans for Lily's future. Other times, she'd be subdued, with dark circles under her eyes and a vacant expression. Money she claimed was for baby supplies disappeared, and she became defensive when I asked gentle questions about how she was spending her time. Despite these red flags, nothing prepared me for what happened the day Lily turned 6 months old. We had celebrated with a tiny cupcake the weekend before, just the 3 of us. Lily had smushed most of it on her face, and for a brief moment, Heather seemed genuinely happy, snapping photos and laughing at her daughter's frosting-covered cheeks. 3 days later, Lily took her first tentative crawling movements across my living room floor, rocking back and forth on her hands and knees before lunging forward to grab a colorful rattle. I recorded it on my phone, planning to show Heather when she next visited. I never got the chance. The day that changed everything started like any other. It was a crisp Saturday morning in October, and I had just finished giving Lily her breakfast when the doorbell rang. Heather stood there with an oversized shoulder bag and dark sunglasses hiding her eyes, even though the day was overcast. "Can you watch Lily for the weekend?" she asked, not quite meeting my gaze. "I have a job interview in New Hampshire. Could be a fresh start for us." Something felt off. Heather was fidgeting more than usual, her fingers constantly tapping against her thigh. She kept glancing over her shoulder at the street below, as if expecting someone to be watching. "Sure," I said hesitantly. "When will you be back?" "Sunday night, Monday morning at the latest." She brushed past me into the apartment and went straight to Lily, who was sitting in her high chair. For a moment, Heather's expression softened as she kissed the top of her daughter's head, inhaling deeply as if memorizing her scent. "Be good for Aunt Maggie, little bean," she whispered, her voice catching. "Mommy loves you so much." The intensity of her goodbye struck me as strange. But before I could question it, she was handing me a bag of Lily's things and backing toward the door. "There's extra diapers and her favorite bear in there," she said quickly. "Oh." And I wrote down her new bedtime routine. "She likes when you sing that song about the moon." "Heather, wait," I started, but she cut me off with a quick, tight hug. "Thanks, sis. You're the only one I trust with her, you know that, right?" Her eyes, when she finally removed her sunglasses, were red-rimmed. "I don't know what we'd do without you." And then she was gone, hurrying down the stairs before I could ask any more questions. Looking back, I should have known. There were so many signs: the emotional goodbye, the detailed instructions, the way she lingered in the doorway for one last look at Lily. Saturday passed, then Sunday. My calls went straight to voicemail. My texts showed as delivered but remained unanswered. By Monday morning, anxiety gnawed at my stomach as I bundled Lily into her car seat and drove to Heather's apartment, hoping for a simple explanation, a dead phone, perhaps, or a job interview that had turned into an immediate start. What I found instead was an empty apartment. The furniture remained, but Heather's clothes were gone from the closet, along with her photographs and personal items. The refrigerator held only expired milk and a half-empty jar of baby food. In the nursery corner, the crib sheets had been stripped, and most of Lily's clothes were missing. Only the outgrown ones remained, folded neatly in a drawer. My hands trembled as I called her landlord, who confirmed my worst fears. Heather had paid her outstanding rent in cash the previous week and said she'd be moving out. On the kitchen counter, partially hidden under a takeout menu, I found a sealed envelope with my name written in Heather's looping handwriting. The note inside was brief, just a few lines that would haunt me for years to come. "Maggie, I can't do this. I'm not cut out to be a mother, and we both know it. Lily is better off with you. She always has been. Please don't try to find me. I'm sorry for everything. Take care of our girl. H." I sank to the floor, the paper crumpling in my fist as Lily babbled happily in her car seat, unaware that her mother had just walked out of her life. The reality of what had happened hit me in waves, first disbelief, then panic, then a surge of protective fury on behalf of this innocent child who deserved so much better. The next few days passed in a blur of police stations and social service offices. I filed a missing persons report, though the officers were skeptical given the note and the clearly planned departure. "Technically, she hasn't committed any crime," one officer explained gently. "She left the child with a responsible family member. It happens more than you'd think." A social worker walked me through my options. I could surrender Lily to foster care while they searched for Heather, or I could petition for temporary guardianship as her closest living relative. The choice wasn't really a choice at all. "She stays with me," I said firmly, looking down at Lily sleeping peacefully in her carrier. "I'm all she is now." The legal process was overwhelming. I drained my savings account to hire a family lawyer who helped me navigate the maze of paperwork required to establish guardianship. Every form I signed, every affidavit I filed, made Heather's abandonment more real and more permanent. At night, after putting Lily to bed in her portable crib, I would sit in the darkness of my living room, alternating between tears of grief for my lost sister and tears of rage at her selfishness. How could she walk away from this perfect child? How could she leave without even saying goodbye? The questions circled endlessly, finding no answers. But in the morning light, when Lily would wake babbling and reaching for me with complete trust in her eyes, I had no choice but to push aside my own pain and be what she needed: stable, loving, present. The betrayal cut deep, but the responsibility ran deeper. "We're going to be okay," I whispered to her one night, as much to convince myself as to comfort her. "I promise I will never leave you." It was a promise I intended to keep, no matter what. The first year after Heather left was the hardest. Balancing full-time nursing with sudden single motherhood pushed me to my limits. I applied for and received temporary legal guardianship, a process that involved home visits from social workers and interviews with my neighbors and colleagues to confirm I could provide a stable environment for Lily. My supervisor at the hospital was surprisingly accommodating, allowing me to switch from night shifts to days and arranging my schedule around daycare hours. Still, the financial strain was immediate and severe. Daycare costs ate up nearly half my salary, and the legal fees for the guardianship petition depleted what little savings I had managed to accumulate. "You should go after Heather for child support," my lawyer suggested during one of our meetings. "We could petition the court to find her." I considered it briefly but ultimately decided against it. "If we find her, she might come back just to avoid paying," I explained. "Or worse, she might try to take Lily back before she's ready to be a mother. I can't risk that." 6 months after Heather disappeared, I moved us from my one-bedroom apartment to a modest 2-bedroom unit in a family-friendly neighborhood with a small playground across the street. The rent stretched my budget to the breaking point. But Lily needed her own space, and I was determined to give her a real home. The night we moved in, I sat in Lily's new room, freshly painted a soft green with glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling, and watched her sleep in her crib, now a permanent fixture rather than a portable one. Her first birthday was approaching, and with it came a wave of conflicting emotions. "Your mom should be here for this," I whispered, gently stroking her dark curls. "I don't know how to explain to you why she's not." Lily's first birthday party was small but joyful. A few friends from work brought their children, and my neighbor Mrs. Chin baked a cake shaped like the stuffed elephant Lily carried everywhere. As everyone sang "Happy Birthday," Lily clapped her hands in delight, her face smeared with frosting just as it had been during that last celebration with Heather. Later that night, I started a tradition that would continue throughout Lily's childhood. I took out a special box I had decorated with colorful paper and filled it with mementos of Heather: photographs, her favorite scarf that still held a trace of her perfume, the note she had left, and a letter I had written explaining who she was and why she left, in terms I hoped would someday make sense to Lily. "This is for when you're older," I told the sleeping child. "So you'll know where you came from, even if I don't have all the answers." As months turned into years, we settled into a rhythm all our own. Lily's first words came at 15 months up and more, followed quickly by Maggie, her version of my name that eventually morphed into Mommy, without any prompting from me. The first time she called me that, at just past 2 years old, I froze, unsure how to respond. "Is that okay?" my friend Amber asked when I confided my uncertainty. "That she calls you Mom?" "I don't know," I admitted. "I am raising her, loving her, doing everything a mother does. But I don't want to erase Heather completely." In the end, I chose not to correct Lily. In every meaningful way, I was her mother, the one who kissed scraped knees, celebrated milestones, and sang lullabies in the middle of the night. The legal documents might say guardian, but our hearts said something different. By the time Lily started preschool at age 3, our life had found its new normal. My nursing career advanced as I specialized further in pediatric care, eventually moving to a position with more regular hours and better benefits. Our apartment filled with finger paintings, tiny shoes, and the countless plastic toys that seem to multiply when you're not looking. I dated occasionally, a doctor from the hospital, a single dad from Lily's preschool, but these relationships rarely progressed beyond a few dinners. Some men were put off by my instant family, while others seemed too eager to play daddy to a child they barely knew. Either way, I found myself unwilling to introduce potential disappointment into Lily's already complicated life. "You're allowed to have your own happiness," my friend Amber insisted after I turned down yet another setup. "Lily wouldn't want you to be alone." "I'm not alone," I replied, watching Lily construct an elaborate block tower on our living room floor. "And my happiness is right there." Throughout these years, I maintained a one-sided correspondence with Heather. On the first of every month, I would send an email to her old account with updates and photos of Lily, her first day of preschool in a yellow dress and light-up sneakers, her successful swim lesson, her starring role as a tree in the school play. I never expected replies, and none came, but it felt important to maintain this thread of connection, however tenuous. As Lily grew, so did her questions. It started simply enough when she was about 5 years old. "Why don't I have a daddy like Emma does?" she asked one evening during bath time, referring to her best friend from kindergarten. I had prepared for this question, consulting with child psychologists about the best approach. "Families come in all different shapes," I explained, helping her rinse shampoo from her hair. "Some kids have a mom and a dad, some have 2 moms or 2 dads, and some, like you, have just one parent." She seemed satisfied with this answer. But a few months later, the questions became more specific. "Was I in your tummy before I was born?" she asked while watching me fold laundry. This time, the truth was unavoidable. Taking a deep breath, I sat beside her on the couch. "Actually, sweetheart, you grew in your birth mother's tummy. Her name is Heather, and she's my sister, your aunt. When you were very little, she realized she couldn't take care of you the way you deserved, so she asked me to be your mommy." Lily's forehead creased in concentration as she processed this information. "Where is she now?" "I don't know," I answered honestly. "She went away a long time ago." "Didn't she love me?" Her voice was small, and the question broke my heart. "She loved you very much," I said, pulling her close. Sometimes adults have big problems that make it hard for them to take care of children, even when they love them. It wasn't your fault that she left. It was never, ever your fault. As Lily processed this new understanding of her origins, I watched carefully for signs of distress or confusion. There were occasional tears and difficult questions I couldn't fully answer. But overall, her resilience amazed me. We talked about Heather when Lily wanted to, looked at photographs together, and sometimes speculated about where she might be now. "Maybe she's a pirate captain," Lily suggested once, spinning a fantastical tale about her birth mother sailing the high seas, unable to bring a baby on her dangerous adventures. I let her create these stories, understanding they were her way of making sense of an abandonment too painful to face directly. In her imagination, Heather didn't leave because she didn't want Lily. She left on a grand adventure, always intending to return someday with treasure and tales to share. On Lily's 8th birthday, we celebrated with a science-themed party at the local children's museum, a reflection of her growing interest in experiments and discovery. Surrounded by friends from school, blowing out candles on a cake decorated with planets and stars, she looked completely at home in the life we had built together. That night, after the last guest had left and Lily was asleep surrounded by her new gifts, I opened a bottle of wine and sat down at my computer to write my monthly email to Heather. "Lily turned 8 today," I wrote. "She wants to be an astronaut or maybe a veterinarian, depending on the day. She has your smile and Dad's stubborn streak. Last week, she won the school spelling bee. I wish you could have seen how proud she was." I attached several photos from the party, including one of Lily in a lab coat and safety goggles, her gap-toothed grin radiating joy. Before hitting send, I added one last line. "It's been nearly 8 years, Heather. If you're reading these at all, know that your daughter is loved and happy. And if you ever want to be part of her life again, We can figure out a way to make that happen carefully and with professional guidance. She's old enough now to have questions I can't answer. I sent the email without much hope, as I had sent nearly 100 before it. Then I closed my laptop, checked on sleeping Lily one more time, and went to bed, secure in the knowledge that tomorrow would be just another day in our perfectly imperfect little family. I had no idea that this particular email would set in motion events that would threaten everything we had built. Life has a way of accumulating around you when you're busy raising a child. One moment Lily was taking her first wobbling steps across our living room, and the next she was racing ahead of me on her bicycle, streamers fluttering from the handlebars as she shouted, "Watch how fast I can go, Mom." Each year brought new milestones that we celebrated together. Her first lost tooth, carefully placed under her pillow for the tooth fairy. Learning to read, her finger tracing under each word as she sounded it out with determination. The science fair project about plant growth that won first place in second grade. Each achievement filled me with a fierce pride and the occasional pang of sadness that Heather was missing it all. By the time Lily turned 7, she had developed her own distinct personality, intelligent and observant, with a dry sense of humor that sometimes caught me off guard. She had my analytical mind, but flashes of Heather's spontaneity. She collected rocks and knew all their scientific names. She hated having her thick, dark hair brushed, but loved styling it in elaborate braids she learned from YouTube tutorials. "You look like your mother when you scrunch your nose like that," I told her once, the words slipping out before I could catch them. "I do." She seemed pleased rather than upset. "Do you have pictures?" That evening, we sat together on the couch and looked through old family photos I had preserved in albums. Pictures of Heather and me as children, swimming at the lake near our grandparents' house. Heather as a teenager, before things got complicated, her arms slung around my shoulders at my high school graduation. "She's pretty," Lily observed, studying a photo of Heather holding her as a newborn in the hospital. "Do you think she remembers me?" "I'm sure she does," I answered carefully. "You're not someone anyone could forget." As Lily grew older, her questions about Heather became more complex and harder to answer. "Did she ever try to call me?" she asked once after a classmate's absent father had suddenly reappeared in his life. "No, sweetheart. But that doesn't mean she doesn't think about you." "Why didn't she want to be my mom?" "It wasn't that she didn't want to be," I explained, choosing my words carefully. "Sometimes people aren't ready for the responsibility, even when they love someone very much." "Are you sure you want to be my mom? What if you change your mind too?" That question pierced my heart. I pulled her into a tight hug. "I have never been more sure of anything in my life. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, and I will never, ever change my mind about being your mom." When Lily turned 8, I decided it was time to take a step I had been considering for years. I contacted my lawyer about formally adopting her. After 7 years with no contact from Heather, the process would be straightforward. Her abandonment and my years as Lily's guardian created a clear path to adoption. "We'll need to make reasonable efforts to locate your sister and notify her of the proceedings," my lawyer explained. "But given the circumstances, the court is likely to terminate her parental rights even if we can't find her." The paperwork took months to prepare and file. Throughout the process, I felt conflicted. Finalizing the adoption meant legally acknowledging that Heather was never coming back, closing a door I had unconsciously kept cracked open. But Lily deserved the security of knowing that no one could ever take her away from the only home she remembered. On a bright spring morning just after Lily's 9th birthday, we dressed in our best clothes and went to the courthouse. The judge, a kind-faced woman with silver hair, asked Lily if she understood what adoption meant. "It means my mom will be my mom forever." Officially, Lily answered solemnly, "Even though she already is my mom in real life." The judge smiled. "That's exactly right." When she pronounced the adoption final and handed Lily a certificate with her new legal name, Lily Grace Peterson, matching my surname at last, the little girl launched herself into my arms with such force she nearly knocked me over. "We're a forever family now," she whispered, and I felt tears spill down my cheeks as I held her tight. We celebrated that evening with a special dinner and a cake frosted with the words, "Official Family Day." Lily insisted on saving the top tier in the freezer, like people do with wedding cakes, because this is just as important. That night, after Lily was asleep, I wrote what I expected would be my final email to Heather. "Today I legally adopted Lily," I typed. "I want you to know that she still asks about you. I've never spoken negatively about you to her. And I've kept photos and memories for when she's older. If you ever want to be part of her life again, that door isn't closed, but it will need to be on terms that protect her emotional well-being. She is thriving, Heather. I hope wherever you are, you've found peace too." I sent the email, then closed my laptop with a sense of finality. It was time to focus entirely on our future, not on the ghost of a sister who had chosen to remain lost. The next 2 years passed in a comfortable routine. Lily entered 4th grade, discovered a passion for soccer, and developed a best friendship with a girl named Maya who lived down the street. I was promoted to charge nurse in the pediatric ward, a position that came with better pay and more regular hours. We took our first real vacation together, a week at a beach resort in Florida, where Lily collected seashells by the bucketful and got her hair braided with colorful beads. Life wasn't perfect, but it was ours, built day by day with love and consistency. I dated occasionally, even had a 6-month relationship with a kind emergency room doctor named James, but remained cautious about introducing men into Lily's life. We were complete as we were. Anything else would be a bonus, not a necessity. On a rainy Sunday afternoon in November, just after Lily's 10th birthday, I was helping her with a school project on family heritage when my phone chimed with a notification. A new message had arrived in my Facebook inbox from an unfamiliar name, Heather Richardson. My hands trembled as I opened it. The profile picture was blurry, but I recognized the eyes, my sister's eyes, the same ones I saw every day in Lily's face. "Megan, it's me. I know it's been a long time. I've been reading all your emails. I'm sober now, married, living in Colorado. I'd like to talk. Please." Lily looked up from her project, noticing my expression. "Mom? What's wrong?" I forced a smile, closing the message before she could see it. "Nothing, sweetheart. Just a work thing." That night, long after Lily was asleep, I sat staring at those few lines of text, my emotions cycling between shock, anger, hope, and fear. 10 years of silence, and now this brief message expecting, what? Forgiveness? A relationship? Access to the child she had abandoned? After hours of deliberation, I replied with a single question. "Why now, Heather?" Her response came the next morning. "I've been in recovery for 3 years. Making amends is part of the process. I've thought about Lily every day since I left. I know I don't deserve it, but I'd like a chance to explain, to apologize, maybe someday to know my daughter." Over the next few weeks, our messages became more frequent. She told me about her battle with addiction, how she had spiraled into methamphetamine use shortly after Lily was born. Unable to cope with motherhood and still grieving our parents, she described hitting rock bottom in Seattle, checking into rehab, meeting her husband in a recovery group, and slowly rebuilding her life. "I was too ashamed to contact you for years," she wrote. "Then I found the courage to read your emails, and it was like watching Lily grow up in snapshots. Your kindness in sending them, even when I didn't deserve it. I don't have words to thank you." I shared very little in return, protective of the life Lily and I had built. When Heather asked if she could see recent photos, I sent only a school portrait, not the intimate family moments captured on my phone. When she asked about Lily's personality, my responses were brief and factual. "She's doing well in school. She likes science and soccer. She's healthy and happy." After weeks of this guarded communication, Heather made the request I had been dreading. "I'd like to see her, Megan. In person. I know it needs to be on your terms, maybe with a therapist present. I just want a chance to apologize to her face." I consulted with a child psychologist about how to proceed. "This is ultimately your decision," she advised. "But if you do decide to allow contact, it should be gradual, structured, and with professional support. Lily's emotional well-being must be the priority." After much soul-searching, I decided to tell Lily about her birth mother's reappearance, presenting it as neutrally as possible. Remember how we've talked about your birth mom, my sister Heather? I began one evening while we were baking cookies together, an activity I hoped would keep her hands busy and make the conversation less intense. Lily nodded, carefully dropping chocolate chips into the batter. Well, she's contacted me recently. She lives in Colorado now, and she's asked if she could meet you someday. Lily's hands stilled. Does she want me to live with her? The question revealed her immediate fear, and I rushed to reassure her. No, absolutely not. You're my daughter, legally and in every way that matters. This would just be a meeting if and when you feel ready. And only if you want to. She considered this, her expression serious beyond her years. Would you be there too? Every second. I promised. We would do this together, like we do everything. After several more conversations and a few sessions with the child psychologist, Lily decided she wanted to exchange letters with Heather before considering a meeting. We established ground rules. The letters would come to me first, and I would read them to ensure they were appropriate. Heather agreed to these terms without hesitation. The first letter arrived 2 weeks later, decorated with stickers and written in careful handwriting. Dear Lily, my name is Heather, and I'm your birth mother. I'm also your Aunt Megan's sister. I want to thank you for letting me write to you. I've thought about you every day for 10 years. I want you to know that when I left, it wasn't because of anything you did. You were a perfect baby. I was the one with problems I didn't know how to fix. Lily listened intently as I read it aloud, then asked thoughtful questions, some I could answer, others I couldn't. Over the next 2 months. Then everything changed. The certified letter arrived on a Tuesday morning, a court summons naming me as respondent in a custody case. Heather was petitioning for shared physical custody of Lily, claiming she had been mentally ill when she left and never intended a permanent abandonment. As I stood in my kitchen reading the legal document, my entire body went cold with fear. The correspondence, the apologies, the gradual approach, had it all been a calculated strategy to gather information and build a case? My phone buzzed with a text from Heather. I'm sorry it had to be this way. My lawyer said this was the only option. I just want a chance to be her mother too. The ground seemed to shift beneath my feet as 10 years of security crumbled into uncertainty. Lily was at school, blissfully unaware that her world was about to be thrown into chaos. In that moment, I made a silent vow. I would fight with everything I had to protect the child who had called me mommy for nearly a decade, the child who was, in every way that mattered, my daughter. The weeks following the court summons were a blur of legal consultations and sleepless nights. My lawyer, Ellen Ramirez, didn't sugarcoat the situation when we met in her downtown office. Its walls lined with law books and family photographs. The adoption complicates things for her, but doesn't make this impossible, Ellen explained, reviewing the documents spread across her desk. Heather is claiming she was mentally incompetent when she abandoned Lily due to postpartum depression and drug addiction. She's arguing that she never intended to permanently relinquish her parental rights. She left a note explicitly saying Lily was better off with me. I countered, my voice rising. She disappeared for 10 years without a single phone call. Ellen nodded, making notes. Those facts work strongly in our favor. But courts generally prefer to reunite biological parents with their children when possible, especially if the parent can demonstrate rehabilitation. So my decade of parenting counts for nothing because we don't share DNA? The injustice burned in my chest. It counts for a great deal, Ellen assured me. Your adoption of Lily will be given significant weight. The judge will consider the stability of Lily's current environment and the potential harm of disrupting it. But we need to prepare for all possibilities. The legal expenses mounted quickly, forcing me to take out a second mortgage on our apartment. I picked up extra shifts at the hospital, leaving Lily with my friend Amber more often than I wanted. The irony wasn't lost on me. Fighting to keep Lily was forcing me to spend less time with her. Meanwhile, Heather's Facebook messages continued, alternating between apologies and justifications. I never wanted it to come to this. But my lawyer says the courts won't give me any rights without a formal petition. I'm not trying to take her from you. I just want to be part of her life too. She's my daughter too. Don't you think she deserves to know both her mothers? I stopped responding, following Ellen's advice to limit communication to legal channels. But the hardest part was deciding what to tell Lily. After consulting with her therapist, I sat her down one evening after dinner. "Remember how Heather has been writing to you?" I began, trying to keep my voice steady. Lily nodded, sensing the serious tone. "Is she coming to visit?" "Not exactly." I took a deep breath. "Heather has asked the court, that's like a group of people who make important decisions, if she can spend more time with you." "A lot more time." Lily's eyes widened. "Like, living with her?" "She's asking to share custody, which would mean you'd spend some time at her house in Colorado and some time here with me." Even saying the words felt like betrayal. "But I don't want to live in Colorado," Lily protested, her voice rising in panic. "My school is here. Maya is here. You're here." "I know, sweetheart." I pulled her into my arms. "And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure you can stay here. But I needed you to know what's happening because there will be some meetings with special people who help kids in situations like this." Lily pulled back, her expression suddenly adult and serious. "Can I tell them I want to stay with you?" "They'll definitely want to know how you feel," I assured her. "But the most important thing is for you to be honest about everything, how you feel about me. About Heather, about the letters you've exchanged." In the days that followed, Lily became uncharacteristically quiet. Her teacher called to say she'd burst into tears during class. She had nightmares that left her crawling into my bed in the early hours, something she hadn't done in years. "What if they make me go away?" she whispered one night, curled against my side. "What if I never see you again?" "That won't happen," I promised, though fear coiled in my stomach. "No matter what, we'll always be connected. Nothing can change the fact that I'm your mom." 2 weeks before the first court hearing, we met with the guardian ad litem appointed to represent Lily's interests. Barbara Winters was a no-nonsense woman with kind eyes and decades of experience navigating family court. She interviewed us separately, first me, then Lily, then together. "I understand your concerns," she told me during our private conversation. 10 years is a long time to be absent from a child's life. "It's her entire life," I emphasized. "Lily has no memories of Heather as her mother. I'm the only mother she's ever known." Barbara made notes. "And what about Heather's rehabilitation? Do you believe she's sincere?" I hesitated. "I believe she regrets leaving. But seeking full shared custody after a few letters? That's not putting Lily first, that's putting her own desires first." When Barbara interviewed us together, Lily sat pressed against my side, answering questions in a small voice so unlike her usual confident tone. "If you could decide, what would you want to happen?" Barbara asked her directly. Lily twisted the hem of her shirt. "I want to stay with my mom. I don't mind letters from Heather, but I don't want to live with someone I don't know." As the court date approached, Heather escalated her campaign. She sent Lily expensive gifts, a tablet, designer clothes, a custom-made doll that resembled her, all of which I set aside, unsure how to handle them. She created social media posts about fighting to reunite with my daughter, garnering sympathy from strangers who didn't know the full story. The night before the hearing, I could neither eat nor sleep. I sat at our kitchen table reviewing documents with Ellen until well past midnight, then checked on Lily repeatedly. Watching her sleep and trying to memorize every detail of her face, the way her eyelashes cast shadows on her cheeks, the slight part of her lips as she breathed. The dark hair splayed across her pillow. The possibility of losing her, even partially, was unbearable. Yet I had to prepare myself and, more importantly, prepare Lily for all potential outcomes. When we entered the courtroom the next morning, Lily's hand clutched tightly in mine. I saw Heather in person for the first time in a decade. She sat at the opposite table with her lawyer. Hair styled in a way I didn't recognize, wearing a conservative navy dress that seemed calculated to project stability. Our eyes met briefly before I looked away. The sight of her familiar face, so like Lily's in some ways, sending a jolt through me. The judge, an older man named Harrison, reviewed the case files before addressing the court. "This is a complex situation with no perfect solution," he began. "On one hand, We have a biological mother seeking to reconnect with her child after addressing the issues that led to her absence. On the other, we have a legal adoptive mother who has provided stability and care for the child's entire remembered life. What followed was hours of testimony from me, from Heather, from character witnesses on both sides. Heather's husband testified about their stable home in Colorado, their involvement in community activities, and the room they had prepared for Lily, complete with a canopy bed and bookshelves filled with age-appropriate novels. I described our daily life together, helping with homework, weekend bike rides, the tradition of pancakes on Sunday mornings. My colleague from the hospital spoke about my dedication as a mother, and Lily's teacher praised her academic performance and emotional adjustment. The most difficult moment came when Barbara presented her recommendations based on her interviews with Lily. The child has expressed a clear preference to remain in her current home with Megan Peterson, whom she identifies as her mother, Barbara stated. While she has expressed curiosity about Heather Richardson, she has significant anxiety about the prospect of divided custody, particularly given the geographical distance between Boston and Denver. Heather visibly flinched at these words, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of sympathy beneath my anger. How desperate she must be to risk causing Lily such distress. When Heather took the stand, her testimony was emotional and seemingly heartfelt. She detailed her struggle with addiction, her recovery journey, and her deep regret for abandoning Lily. "I was sick when I left," she said, voice breaking. "Not in my right mind. I've spent years working to become someone worthy of knowing my daughter. I'm not asking to take her away from the only home she's known. I'm just asking for the chance to be part of her life, to give her the love I wasn't able to give her before." Her lawyer presented evidence of her 3 years of sobriety, steady employment as an administrative assistant, character references from her recovery sponsor and therapist, and documentation of the stable home she shared with her husband. Throughout the proceedings, I maintained a composed exterior while internally cycling through rage, fear, and occasional moments of doubt. Was I being selfish? Would having a relationship with Heather ultimately benefit Lily, giving her a broader sense of family and identity? But then I would remember Lily's terrified questions, "What if they make me go away?" And my resolve would harden again. This wasn't about me versus Heather. This was about protecting Lily from further trauma and upheaval. After 2 exhausting days of testimony, Judge Harrison announced he would take time to consider his ruling. "This decision requires careful deliberation," he explained. "I'll issue my ruling next week. In the meantime, the current custody arrangement remains in place." The week that followed was the longest of my life. Lily became increasingly anxious, asking daily whether the judge had decided. I tried to maintain our normal routine while fielding calls from Ellen and preparing contingency plans for every possible outcome. When we returned to court the following Monday, the tension was palpable. Judge Harrison entered, his expression giving no hint of his decision. After careful consideration of all testimony and evidence, he began. "And with the best interests of the child as my primary concern, I have reached the following conclusion." The courtroom seemed to hold its collective breath as he continued. "Megan Peterson will retain primary physical custody of Lily Peterson. Heather Richardson is granted limited visitation rights to be exercised initially in Boston under supervised conditions, with the possibility of expanded visitation pending successful adjustment and the recommendation of a court-appointed therapist." Relief flooded through me so intensely that I nearly collapsed in my seat. Beside me, Ellen squeezed my arm in silent congratulation. Across the aisle, Heather covered her face with her hands, her shoulders shaking. The judge continued, outlining specific terms: quarterly supervised visits to start, weekly video calls, continued exchange of letters and photos. A family therapist would work with all parties to navigate this new relationship, with the court reviewing progress in 6 months. This arrangement acknowledges both Ms. Richardson's biological connection and sincere desire to know her daughter, while respecting the stable and loving home Ms. Peterson has provided for Lily's entire life, Judge Harrison concluded. It is my hope that both parties can set aside their differences and focus on what truly matters, the well-being of this child. Outside the courtroom, Heather approached us, her eyes red from crying. "Congratulations," she said stiffly. "I hope you'll honor the visitation schedule." "I will," I replied, equally formal. "For Lily's sake." She knelt down to Lily's level. "I'm looking forward to getting to know you better. I know this is all strange and scary, but I promise I'm not trying to take you away from your mom. I just want to be part of your life too." Lily pressed closer to my side, regarding Heather with cautious eyes. "Okay," she said simply. As we walked away, Lily looked up at me. "Does this mean I have to go to Colorado?" "No, sweetheart," I assured her, my heart still racing with relief. "You're staying right here with me. Heather will visit sometimes, but this is your home." The battle was over. But I knew the journey was just beginning. Somehow, we would need to find a way forward that honored the court's decision while protecting Lily's emotional well-being. It wouldn't be easy. But nothing about our path had been easy so far. What mattered most was that we would face it together, just as we always had. The first supervised visit with Heather took place on a Saturday afternoon at a family counseling center in downtown Boston. Lily had been quiet all morning as I helped her pick out an outfit, settling on a blue sweater and jeans that she said made her feel comfortable, and answered her nervous questions for the 100th time. "What should I call her?" she asked, watching me braid her hair in the bathroom mirror. "Whatever feels right to you," I said carefully. "You could start with Heather and see how that feels." "Not Mom," Lily said firmly. "You're my mom." I met her eyes in the reflection. "Always." Dr. Chin, the family therapist appointed by the court, welcomed us at the center and explained the process. She would be present throughout the tower visit, ensuring everything remained comfortable for Lily. I would wait in an adjacent room, available if needed. When Heather arrived, carrying a gift bag and wearing an anxious smile, Lily gripped my hand tightly. "Remember," I whispered, kneeling to her level, "you can ask Dr. Chin to come get me anytime. This is about what makes you comfortable." She nodded solemnly, then straightened her shoulders with a determination that made my heart swell with pride. My brave girl. Those 2 hours felt eternal. I alternated between pacing the waiting room and trying to distract myself with outdated magazines. When the door finally opened and Lily emerged, her expression was thoughtful rather than upset. "How was it?" I asked carefully on the drive home. "Okay," she said, looking out the window. She brought pictures of when I was a baby. And she has a dog named Cooper. She said he'd like to meet me someday. Over the next few weeks, a tentative pattern emerged. The supervised visits continued, asking Heather questions about her life in Colorado and about their shared family history. Heather told me Grandma used to make special pancakes with blueberry faces, Lily informed me one evening. "Do you remember those?" "I do," I smiled, surprised by the bittersweet nostalgia the memory evoked. "Mom would use chocolate chips for the eyes and blueberries for the smile. Can we make them sometime?" "Of course." 3 months into the visitation schedule, Heather approached me after a drop-off. "Could we talk for a few minutes? Just us?" We sat on a bench in the park across from the counseling center, an uncomfortable distance between us. "I owe you an apology," she began, staring at her hands. "Not just for leaving, but for how I came back into your lives. The lawsuit, it was aggressive and unfair. My lawyer convinced me it was the only way, but I should have tried harder to work things out with you directly." I remained silent, not ready to offer forgiveness, but acknowledging her words with a slight nod. "Lily talks about you constantly, you know," she continued. "Everything is Mom says this or Mom and I do that. It's clear how much she loves you." She paused, blinking rapidly. "You've done an amazing job with her, Megan. Better than I could have done." "Thank you," I said finally. "But I didn't do it to be better than you. I did it because she needed me." "I know." She met my eyes directly for the first time. "And I'm starting to understand that what she needs now isn't for me to try to be her mother. She already has a mother. What she needs is for the adults in her life to stop fighting and start cooperating." Something tight in my chest loosened slightly. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm not going to push for the expanded visitation at the 6-month review. The current arrangement is working, and it's what Lily's comfortable with. Maybe someday that will change. But I'm following her lead now, not my own wishes. The 6-month court review confirmed this new understanding. Judge Harrison seemed pleased with Dr. Chen's reports of steady, positive progress, and with Heather's voluntary decision to maintain the current visitation schedule rather than seeking expansion. This kind of cooperation is exactly what serves Lily's best interests, he noted, approving the continuation of our arrangement. As months turned into a year, something unexpected began to happen. The rigid boundaries between Heather time and our life started to blur slightly. When Lily scored the winning goal in a soccer game, I found myself texting Heather a photo of her triumphant face. When Heather discovered Lily's interest in geology during one of their visits, she sent a beautiful rock collection that became one of Lily's prized possessions. We weren't friends. The history between us held too much pain for that, but we were developing a functional relationship centered around the child we both loved in our different ways. The most significant shift came shortly after Lily turned 11, when she asked if Heather could attend her school orchestra concert. "Would that be okay with you?" she asked tentatively. "She'll be in town for our regular visit that weekend anyway." I hesitated only briefly. "If that's what you want, then yes." That evening, sitting in the school auditorium with Heather several seats away, watching Lily play her cello with intense concentration, I had a moment of clarity. This wasn't the family configuration I would have chosen, but it was ours now. For Lily's sake, I could accept it. After the concert, we stood awkwardly in the school lobby, both congratulating Lily on her performance. "That was beautiful, sweetheart," I said, straightening her slightly crooked bow tie. "You were amazing," Heather added. "I had no idea you were so talented." Lily beamed at both of us, then suggested something that caught me off guard. "Can we all go for ice cream to celebrate? The three of us?" Heather and I exchanged glances, both of us momentarily speechless. "If that's what you'd like," I managed finally. And so we found ourselves sitting around a small table at Lily's favorite ice cream parlor, making stilted conversation about the concert, the unseasonably warm weather, and Lily's upcoming science project. It wasn't comfortable exactly, but it wasn't the tense standoff it would have been a year earlier. As time passed, these joint activities became more frequent, always at Lily's request, and always carefully planned. We celebrated her 12th birthday with a small party at our apartment, where Heather helped serve cake and chatted politely with my friends. When Lily had her wisdom teeth removed, Heather flew in for a few days to help during her recovery, taking the day shift while I worked and then leaving the apartment when I returned home. During one of our therapy sessions with Dr. Chen, now scheduled quarterly rather than monthly, Lily made an observation that stopped me cold. "I used to be scared that you both wanted me to pick sides," she said thoughtfully. "Like if I liked spending time with Heather, it would hurt Mom's feelings, or if I talked about Mom too much, it would make Heather sad." "And how do you feel now?" Dr. Chen prompted. Lily considered this. "I still feel that sometimes. But mostly I feel lucky. Some kids don't even have one person who really wants them, and I have two." On the drive home, I reflected on how far we had come from those terrifying days in court. The journey hadn't been easy. There had been setbacks, arguments, moments of jealousy and resentment on both sides. But somehow, we had found a way forward that put Lily's needs at the center. Last month, as Lily approached her 13th birthday, Heather called me directly, something that had become more common as our communication improved. "I've been thinking about the summer," she said. "Lily mentioned she's interested in space camp, and there's an excellent program here in Colorado. Would you consider letting her come for 2 weeks? She'd stay with us, of course, but it would be her first extended visit." My initial instinct was protective resistance. 2 weeks was a long time, but I reminded myself that Lily was growing up, becoming more independent every day. And over the past 3 years, Heather had proven herself reliable and respectful of boundaries. "Let me talk to Lily about it," I said. "If she's comfortable with the idea, then yes." When I broached the subject with Lily, her eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? You'd be okay with that? If it's what you want?" "Then I'm okay with it," I assured her. "You're old enough now to have more input into these decisions. She hugged me tightly. Thank you, Mom. But I'll call you every day, I promise. I'm counting on it. As I packed Lily's suitcase for her first extended stay with Heather, I came across the memory box I had created years ago, the one filled with photos and mementos of Heather that I had preserved for Lily. Many of those items had migrated to Lily's room over the years, incorporated into her understanding of her complex family story. I realized then that the box had served its purpose, though not in the way I had initially imagined. It wasn't just a connection to an absent mother, but a bridge between past and present, between loss and reconciliation. That evening, Lily and I sat on our porch swing, the same one where we had weathered so many storms together. The setting sun painted the sky in shades of pink and gold as we talked about her upcoming trip. Her excitement about space camp, her nervous anticipation about staying with Heather and her husband Tom. You know what I was thinking about today? Lily said, leaning her head against my shoulder in a gesture that had become rarer as she grew older. What's that? Remember when I was little and I asked you if Heather left because she didn't love me? I nodded, my throat tightening at the memory. I understand better now, she continued. It wasn't about not loving me. It was about her not being ready to be a mom. And about you being brave enough to be my mom instead. I wrapped my arm around her shoulders, marveling at the wisdom of this child who had navigated such complicated emotional terrain with remarkable grace. I'm really glad you're my mom, she said simply. Me too, sweetheart. Every single day. As we sat there watching the sky darken and the first stars appear, I reflected on our journey. 10 years ago, when Heather left her baby with me and vanished, I could never have imagined the path that lay ahead, the challenges we would face, the battles we would fight, and, ultimately, the healing we would find. Motherhood hadn't come to me in the way I expected, but it had come nonetheless, bringing with it the most profound love I had ever known. Through all the uncertainty and fear, that love had been our compass, guiding us toward this moment of peace. I don't know what the future holds for our unconventional family. There will surely be new challenges as Lily navigates adolescence and eventually adulthood. But I'm no longer afraid of what comes next. We've built something strong and resilient together, not perfect, but real and true. So I ask you, after hearing our story, what makes a family? Is it biology, legal documents? Or is it the daily choice to show up, to love unconditionally, to put someone else's needs before your own? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If our journey has touched you in any way, please consider giving this video a like and subscribing to hear more stories of family, resilience, and unconventional love. Thank you for being part of our story, and remember that sometimes the most beautiful families are the ones we build ourselves, one day at a time.